So today we're diving into something pretty profound. We're going to explore what the legendary psychologist Carl Jung considered his most dangerous discovery. And it wasn't some universal archetype or a hidden complex you might expect. No, it was about a certain kind of person, someone who sees things, who perceives things that others just can't or maybe won't see. And we're going to figure out why this incredible and incredibly rare ability can either completely destroy a person or transform them into someone truly extraordinary.
And this quote from Jung himself, wow, it just gets right to the heart of the whole thing, doesn't it? The real danger isn't what you see, it's the profound, crushing isolation that comes from being the only one who sees it. You know, when you become a living, breathing mirror for a world that refuses to look at its own reflection, you are left completely and utterly alone. And that psychic isolation, that's our first big clue to the immense psychological cost we're about to unpack.
So right there, that's the central paradox. Just imagine having a superpower that also alienates you from literally everyone around you. A gift that, most days, probably feels a lot more like a curse. For Jung, there was just no safe middle ground for people with this kind of perception. The sheer psychological pressure forces a choice. You either collapse under the weight of what you see, or you go through this profound evolutionary transformation. The stakes? They couldn't be higher.
Okay, so to really get a grip on this, we have to go back to where it all began for Jung. Because this wasn't some abstract theory he just cooked up in his study. Oh no. This was a reality that walked right into his office, a reality that would forever change his understanding of consciousness itself.
So, picture this. The year is 1913. Jung is still reeling from his intense and painful break with Sigmund Freud, and he's navigating his own deep psychological waters. And right at this moment, a new patient walks in. She's a highly introverted, intensely intuitive woman. And she wasn't just empathetic, she was like a psychic antenna. She could walk into a room and instantly download the entire psychological atmosphere. She knew who was lying, who was hiding pain, who held secret resentments. She saw this intricate, invisible web of unconscious tensions that, everyone else had just silently agreed to ignore.
Jung actually gave this ability a name: differentiated perception. And let's be really clear here, this isn't just about being good at reading body language. This is a profound and often totally overwhelming capacity to perceive the unconscious in other people, the hidden thoughts, the repressed emotions, the deep-seated patterns that are secretly driving their behavior. And in that moment, Jung realized he wasn't treating a pathology. He was witnessing a form of consciousness so advanced it had actually become socially dangerous.
Now, you might be familiar with the term highly sensitive person, or HSP. It's a trait that applies to a pretty significant 20% of the population. But what Jung was describing here is way rarer, way more specific. He was pointing to the introverted intuitive type, which he figured made up just 1% of the population. So these aren't just people who feel things deeply. They are people who perceive the unconscious architecture of the psyche with a startling, almost unnerving clarity.
So, if this ability is so rare and so powerful, why on earth did Jung call it dangerous? Well, because seeing that invisible reality behind the social curtain, it comes with a heavy, heavy price. It exposes you to 3 profound psychological perils that most people, thankfully, never have to face. Let's break them down.
The first danger is something Jung called shadow projection. So our shadow, that's the part of our unconscious that holds everything we deny about ourselves, our flaws, our insecurities, our darker impulses. And because you see these hidden parts in others so clearly, you become that living mirror we talked about. And when people see their own unacknowledged shadow reflected in you, well, their psyche has 2 choices: own it or attack the mirror. And most people, unconsciously, choose to attack the mirror.
And this quote, it just reveals the defense mechanism perfectly. I mean, think about it. That person whose arrogance just drives you up the wall, maybe they're reflecting a part of you that secretly wants more recognition. Or the person whose chaos you just can't stand. Maybe they mirror chaos you're desperately trying to repress in your own life. Now, for most people, that irritation is a clue to self-understanding. But for you, the person with differentiated perception, your very presence can trigger this violent, unconscious rejection. You become the scapegoat, blamed for the very truths you're just observing.
And this constant barrage of shadow projection leads directly to the second danger, a profound existential isolation. This isn't just feeling lonely in a crowd. It's the feeling of living in a completely different reality. You see the subtext in every single conversation, the hidden agendas, the emotional currents that everyone else is either totally unaware of or has just agreed to ignore. Small talk becomes this exhausting performance because you see right through the facade. You become, as Jung put it, an island of awareness in a vast, vast ocean of unconsciousness.
But the most terrifying risk, the one that Jung found truly, truly dangerous, is identity dissolution. Your psychic sensitivity is so high, you don't just perceive others' unconscious stuff, you absorb it. You take on their anxieties, their unprocessed emotions, their psychological baggage, until you honestly can't tell what's yours and what belongs to them anymore. Jung called the state participation mystique. It's like a kind of psychic bleeding, where your own psychological boundaries just dissolve and you risk losing your individual self completely. Okay, so if the gift is this dangerous, what's the solution, right? How do you avoid a total collapse? Well, Jung didn't just diagnose the problem, he devoted his life to creating a roadmap to turn this overwhelming burden into a conscious and integrated power. He called this journey the individuation process, and it has 3 really critical stages.
The whole process kicks off with recognition and differentiation. This is where you learn to consciously separate your own authentic feelings from all that psychic noise you've been absorbing from others. Next up, and this is maybe the most crucial step, shadow integration. To stop being a target for everyone else's shadow, you have to courageously turn inward and face your own. By acknowledging that you contain every human quality, both good and bad, you neutralize their power over you. And only then can you reach the final stage, conscious participation, re-engaging with the world, but no longer as a victim of your perception, but as a conscious wielder of it.
And to really understand the life or death importance of this process, just consider these 2 figures. On one side, you have the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Jung saw him as a genius who basically weaponized his perception, using it like a hammer to smash societal illusions. But it was unintegrated, and it led him to profound isolation and ultimately a tragic psychological breakdown. On the other side, you have the medieval mystic Meister Eckhart. He had the same profound perception of reality, but instead of using it to attack, he channeled it into compassionate service, transforming his incredible insight into wisdom. Same gift, 2 completely different fates.
You know, this whole journey was deeply personal for Jung. In his famous Red Book, he documented his own terrifying battle with these overwhelming perceptions. He even wrote that he was menaced by a psychosis. What saved him? It wasn't suppressing what he saw. His breakthrough was a radical reframe, realizing this wasn't sickness. This was consciousness itself, attempting to evolve to the next level through him.
And this idea, well, it changes everything. If you have this ability, you are not broken. You are not flawed. According to Jung, you are a consciousness pioneer. You're like an advanced scout exploring psychological territories that humanity as a whole isn't quite ready for yet, but will eventually need to navigate for its own survival.
But hey, even pioneers need a support system, what Jung called the few who understand. So how do you find these rare people? Well, they don't get defensive when you share a hard truth. They get curious. They're able to acknowledge their own flaws. They actually value inner reality, not just surface appearances. And most importantly, they are committed to their own journey of growth. These are the kinds of people who won't be threatened by your gift.
But look, this path is not easy, and Jung warned of some really common traps. There's the inflation trap, where you fall into a sort of prophet complex, believing your perception is absolute truth. There's withdrawal, where you use your gift as an excuse to just become a hermit. Then there's the trap of the compulsive helper, where you lose yourself by becoming addicted to fixing everyone else. And under stress, there's always the risk of overwhelm return, sliding back into old, painful patterns. Just knowing these traps is the first step to avoiding them. So let's bring this all the way back around. What happened to that patient from 1913, the woman whose crisis started this whole thing? Well, after working with Jung, her life was transformed. She didn't learn to see less, she learned how to manage what she saw. She eventually became a counselor herself, turning the very perception that was once a source of so much pain into her greatest tool for helping and healing others. And this quote from Jung, it just perfectly sums up the goal of the entire journey. It's not about suppressing your ability or learning to see less. It's about learning to see more wisely. It's about fundamentally changing your relationship to the gift, so it becomes an integrated tool you consciously wield, rather than an overwhelming force that just controls you.
So what is the ultimate takeaway here? If any of this has resonated with you, I want you to know this. Your perception is not a bug in your psychological software. It is an advanced feature. You are not broken because you see what others miss. In Jung's view, you're simply ahead of the curve, a carrier of the evolution of consciousness itself.
The thing is, you were born to see the world with a clarity that very few possess. The danger was never in what you see, but in what you choose to do with that sight. Jung's work basically provides the map, so the only question left is the one you have to answer for yourself. What are you going to do with it?